I'll call to order the Monday, October 27th, 2014 Raymore City Council meeting. Ms. Hill, please call roll to confirm a quorum.
Councilmember Abdelgawad.
Here.
Councilmember Boehner, absent. Councilmember Holman.
Present.
Councilmember Hubach.
Present.
Councilmember Kellogg.
Present.
Councilmember Moorhead.
Present.
Councilmember Stevens.
Present.
Councilmember Westcoat.
Present.
Mayor Kirkhoff.
Present. We do have a quorum. Would everybody please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And moving on, we do have a proclamation tonight, so you'll join me at the podium. Thank you for coming in. I'll read this and then let you have the mic for a minute, okay? Proclamation, whereas pancreatic cancer is one of the deadliest cancers and is currently the fourth leading cause of cancer death in the United States and is projected to become second by 2020. Whereas in 2014, an estimated 46,420 people will be diagnosed with pancreatic cancer in the United States and 39,590 will die from the disease, and there is only one major cancer with 5-year relative survival rate in the single digits, just 6%. Whereas when symptoms of pancreatic cancer present themselves, it is generally a late stage, and 73% of pancreatic cancers die within the first year of their diagnosis, while 94% of pancreatic cancer patients die within the first 5 years. Whereas the good health and well-being of the residents of the city of Raymore are enhanced as a direct result of increased awareness about pancreatic cancer and research into early detection, causes, and effective treatments. And whereas the Pancreatic Cancer Action Network and its affiliates in the city of Raymore support those patients currently battling pancreatic cancer, as well as those that have lost their lives to the disease, and are committed to nothing less than a cure. And whereas this proclamation is being presented to Robert and Sharon McKinney in memory of their mother, Bonnie Sue Roeder, who lost her fight with pancreatic cancer in June of this year. Now, therefore, I, Peter Kirkhoff, Mayor of the City of Raymore, do hereby proclaim November 2014 as Pancreatic Cancer Awareness Month. So, thank you.
Thank you.
And you can have the mic if you'd like to say something.
Yes. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Robert McKinney. This is my sister Sharon. Our mother was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer February 11th, 2013. Through a 14-month battle, we won several of those battles. However, on June the 23rd of this year, we lost the war. Mom passed away. From the bottom of our hearts, we would like to thank everybody that is responsible for this proclamation. And we just want to say thank you very much.
Thank you, folks.
We'll move on to personal appearances. Mr. Adams, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Jeffrey Adams, 521 North Jefferson, Raymore. Come before the council again tonight because you have your second reading of the budget and an opportunity to try to reinstate the Oates bus transportation item that was taken out 2 weeks ago. Reason I come in tonight is to clear up some information that has been disseminated that is completely false by a couple of the council members. I don't know the reasoning why they would put out blatant lies about this program and how it works other than to serve their interest in trying to support their position. But the Oates bus has been around, Oates Transit has been around since 1970. So you have a 44-year record of performance with this organization. They serve 32,000 people in 87 counties in Missouri, and last year provided a little over 1.5 million one-way trips for people in need. And who are those people? Anyone can ride the Oats bus, regardless of age, income, disability, race, gender, religion, or national origin. Local offices or drivers have fare schedules for those who have the ability to pay. You must reserve a ride at least 24 hours in advance of a scheduled run or for medical appointments as needed. The website oatstransit.org, the website for the organization, clearly shows how to schedule a ride. In this market, that's done by calling Joan Kinslow in Belton. Now, a couple of the council members, as I mentioned, Mr. Westcoat and particularly Mr. Moorhead, were disseminating false information on Facebook about this program. Now, I don't follow these groups, but when I start getting phone calls from riders of Oats saying that people are saying things about you and about the bus and it's not true, and people need to know that. Mr. Moorhead in particular placed false information with somebody for the simple purpose of attacking me, my company, and the Oats transit system by saying that I controlled who rode the buses, by saying I scheduled things. And then when they were called out on that, oh, it wasn't me, it was my girlfriend that handled it. All of these are obvious and blatant lies, and any of that information is readily available, as I just quoted, from their website. Mr. Moorhead, your actions are reprehensible and beneath the conduct of a sitting city council member. And I hope that the members of your ward remember that next April. Mrs. Hubot, you voted against this 2 weeks ago. I would ask you to make a resolution to put it back in the budget so that for $2,800, the city of Raymore could join the city of Belton and other communities around the state in supporting this very worthy cause. Mr. Mayor, Council, thank you for your time.
We'll move on to staff reports.
Thank you, sir. I would ask that Mr. Mike Krass make the report for Public Works this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Fairborn, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Just wanted to give you an update on some of our construction projects that are starting this month. The street preservation project, all of the microsurfacing and crack sealing is complete. Later this month, we are going to be working on some more base patching and patch repairs in the Creekmore area. The sidewalk project has started. They will be they've marked the right-of-way and are going to be starting excavation later this week. Also, the Eagle Glen Trail project has started. We have scheduled a pre-construction meeting this week for the Johnson Drive storm sewer, so I would anticipate that work starting in early November. With that, I am available for questions.
Questions of staff? Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. I would ask Chief Zimmerman to please make a report regarding an upcoming shredding event for the city.
Thank you, sir. I just wanted to let the council know we are planning a shred event here at City Hall on the 15th of November from 10 until 2 to sort of target folks in the community that would like to shred personal documents in order to avoid things like identity theft. We'll be partnering with the postal inspectors who do an entire identity theft program for that. So that is open to the public, and as I said, it's a free event for the community to come and shred documents under the watchful eye of the police department. Anybody have any questions?
Questions of staff? Councilmember Stevens?
Yes, sir.
I didn't get all that. What was the date again?
The 15th of November, that's a Saturday, from 10 to 2.
Other questions? Thank you for putting that together so quickly.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. I'll call on Mr. Ryan Murdoch for an emergency management report.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, everybody. I wanted to quickly give you all an update on the county's preparedness due to the Ebola crisis in the United States. Chief Zimmerman and I felt it was important that the council was aware of what the county and region is doing as a response to this current epidemic. As you probably are aware, the Ebola virus was confirmed in the United States for the first time on September 30th in Texas. We currently have 2 Ebola cases that are active in the United States. That's it right now. There's a nurse who's being treated at the National Institute of Health, and there's a doctor in New York City who's being treated at Bellevue Hospital in New York City. Today, the last test of a 5-year-old who returned from West Africa came back negative, so we are down to those 2 cases. There are no known cases of Ebola presently in the Midwest. A couple of quick things that we wanted to clear up along with Cass County Health. Someone is, if they are symptomatic with Ebola, is the only way that you can actually get the disease. In addition, the disease is spread through bodily fluids, but it is not spread through the air. That being said, the Ebola virus can survive in these bodily fluids for approximately 24 hours. It's one of the reasons that sometimes there is some panic and fear associated, obviously, with the disease. Cass County Public Health, along with the MARC region, the 10 counties surrounding our city, have been absolutely fantastic in getting out ahead of the Ebola epidemic. Protocols were actually in place or starting to be discussed and in place even prior to that September 30th diagnosis in Texas. Currently, Cass County, along with regional hospitals throughout Kansas City, have increased their screening protocols. That's the number one thing that they're doing, is increasing the screening questions for people who are calling in and saying that they are having symptoms that might be indicative of Ebola. In addition, there have been briefings for all first responders. That includes fire, EMS, and police, as to how to treat anyone, or let me rephrase, how to react to a situation where somebody may think that they have Ebola, particularly with police dispatchers. So if somebody is calling in, they are now using the guidelines provided by the Centers for Disease Control on how to, or what questions to ask those particular individuals if they're calling into police dispatch. The other thing I wanted to tell you is today, literally this afternoon, the CDC issued new guidelines for Ebola. They are now going to classify people as high risk versus low risk. High risk people are going to be those people who have been directly in the 3 West African countries of Liberia, Sierra Leone, and Guinea. And then low risk people are going to be anyone who has been in contact or, for example, on an airplane with somebody who even is showing symptoms of Ebola. Those people are still going to be considered low risk. The other quote that the Centers for Disease Control listed, and I think it's important, and it is posted on their website today, is they said, Ebola poses no substantial risk to the United States general population. The Centers for Disease Control recognizes that Ebola causes a lot of public worry and concern, but the CDC wants to stress that they are there to protect the health of all Americans, including those who may become ill while they are overseas, which has been obviously their primary concern, specifically with those health workers who have traveled to West Africa and now have returned to the United States. Ebola patients can be transported and managed safely when appropriate precautions are used, specifically with personal protective equipment. So there is numerous websites that you can find a lot more information if you are interested. That includes the State Emergency Management Agency, the National Institute of Health, and the Centers for Disease Control. If you would like a copy of some of the different documents from the county and from the Centers for Disease Control, you can contact Mr. Fearborn. We can send those electronically. I did bring a couple of copies if anybody is interested later this evening in receiving kind of what the county is doing. So we just thought it was important that you guys kind of knew that we were ahead of the ball game. Here in the Midwest, we are ahead of things in relation to everybody else.
Questions?
Anybody have any questions?
Councilmember Stevens?
I'm not terribly concerned about being here, but in the case that it would be, do the first responders have the proper protective equipment, and what would you do about the decontamination part of it?
First of all, they do have the proper personal protective equipment. All of the first responders have the proper chem suits along with respirators, and then even all the way down to the protective boots and gloves. So all of those things they do have. That includes fire, EMS, and police right now. As far as decontamination would go, if there should be an event that would require decontamination, we would be going through Cass County Public Health and follow their decontamination procedures along with the CDC's procedures. Materials-wise, we would be obviously seeking out the mutual aid agreements that we would have specifically with the larger jurisdictions to have those kinds of decontamination tents available. Uh-huh.
Councilmember Westcoat?
With only 2 known cases in the United States, to list it as a crisis or an epidemic is a huge stretch, at least to me. It is concerning and it is troubling, but the fact that we can actually trace it back to very specific people, very specific flights, and coming from very specific hot zones, and the fact that, you know, the people who have been infected here, with exception to the first gentleman that came over, we've actually been able to treat and cure. To use the words epidemic and crisis, I mean, to me, that's, I think that should be removed from the language. Because, you know, to me, here in the Midwest, I think we should be more concerned with the flu season that's actually about to be upon us, because flu kills over 143,000 in the United States, whereas we have 2 infected people in the country. So I'm not saying it's not a concern, but I think our concern really needs to be, you know, focused on what actually kills people here.
And I totally respect what you're saying there, and I'm using that word because that's the word that the CDC has obviously been using, especially within the media. Cass County Public Health, by the way, one of the things that they wanted people to know is that influenza and, for example, the measles are far more contagious than Ebola, though they would also say they're concerned, obviously, since the flu presents the same symptoms as Ebola. That's one of the reasons that, especially on the East Coast, that people are a little bit more concerned with people coming into the country.
Councilmember Kellogg?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you were speaking with who you've been working with in the first responders and that, I didn't hear, but I'm going to ask specifically, have you been working with the school district and that aspect, that angle of what they're doing there? You know, I mean, it's out of my jurisdiction or my responsibilities as city councilman, but I'm curious if you are working with the school district to help them if they do have any questions, because that is a major concern of just about especially all of our students out here too. So.
Right, and that's a good question. And because the school district crosses Peculiar and Raymore, they are actually working with the Cass County Health Department. They are specifically working with Caitlin Walls, Tiffany Clausen, and Amanda Prow. And are doing all the health-related questions through them. In terms of preparedness measures, we can give them advice and help them with that. But from the actual health standpoint, I've kind of referred those questions to Cass County Health because they're the ones who have been out front of this the entire time.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Just a couple of other items to follow up. Next Monday night's work session, currently scheduled, would be our first workshop with SFS Architecture on the Civic Center Program number 1. Second item, and I guess I'm seeking direction here, will the Roundabout Feature Committee be prepared to make presentation? So that will also be on the agenda for next Monday night. Those are the 2 items. Lastly, at the last regularly scheduled council meeting, you may remember we talked about 50 pitfalls as far as ethics may be concerned and legalities concerned with being a council member, and MML was offering a webinar presentation which we attended last Thursday. Mr. Willerth and myself and Jeannie were in the webinar. It's very, very good. We had the opportunity to get it taped. Jeannie took advantage of that particular opportunity in registering us to pay an additional $50, which gets us the entire history of that series of webinars. So those are now available to any member of the council, and we will be getting you an index of those, and it's both the written materials as well as being able to view the webinar itself. And they're very, very good. We get a lot out of them each time. Joe came away with just tons of questions that I'm sure he's ready to spring forth information to you all. That concludes staff reports, sir.
All right, thank you. No committee reports tonight, so we'll move on to the consent agenda. I'll entertain a motion to dispose of the consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented to include item A, City Council minutes from October 13th, 2014. Item B, the reappointment of Leo Anderson to the Planning and Zoning Commission. Item C, the reappointment of Donald Muschke to Planning and Zoning Commission. Item D, the appointment of Stephanie Como to the TIF Commission. And item E, the acceptance of the City Hall carpet replacement project.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Move on to unfinished business with the adoption of the first item with the adoption of the budget. And we have the second reading of Bill 3012, please.
Second reading of Bill 3012 by title only. An ordinance approving the fiscal year 2015 budget of the City of Raymore, Missouri.
Staff report, please.
Thank you, sir. Staff did want to report that all of the amendments which were proposed and approved by the City Council during its first reading are included in the ordinance before you tonight. You will note those items under Administration and Police Department in italics for the general fund. You will note those items under Transportation in the capital budget component of the ordinance before you this evening. That concludes staff reports, sir.
Thank you. Questions of staff? I'll entertain a motion to dispose of the second reading of Bill 3012.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3012, the adoption of the fiscal year 2015 city budget.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the second reading of Bill 3012. Is there any discussion? Councilmember Abdel-Gawad?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we amend the budget to add $2,800 from the general fund expense for funding an Oates bus.
Second.
We have a motion and a
Point
second.
of order. Since that was brought before us before, it has to be a reconsideration, I believe, by the group that was actually in on the winning side of that issue. Is that not correct?
I'll ask our parliamentarian.
Is that the same issue?
Yes.
If we're reconsidering the issue, the motion should be made by someone from the prevailing side.
Were you on the prevailing side? No. Okay, so we will ignore the motion. Councilmember Westcott?
Mr. Mayor, I actually would like to make a motion to amend the fiscal year 2015 budget to increase the administration department, their professional services budget line by $3,000 to allow for an expanded citizen survey to determine the need and or the public's desire for the city to provide funding for public transportation to senior citizens and other persons of need in the community.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to amend the budget. And I'll ask you to read that again before we vote on it, but it was to increase the professional services budget by $3,000, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Go ahead.
After our first budget, I asked city staff to actually find out what it would cost to do a survey specifically for our senior market. The reason being, with all the other presentations that we've had, they haven't been data-driven. You know, we've heard a lot of people say, there's a need, there's a need, there's a need. And when Councilmember Moorhead and I have actually asked to see data, asked to see, please demonstrate that need, we never see anything. Ever since our last meeting to discuss the budget where this issue was drawn out, I've only received one phone call from an individual expressing interest, and I believe we all received the phone call from the same person. So what I would like to do, since Raymore is in the habit of making data-driven decisions, let's create a survey, or in addition to the one we do, to find out what the need is, to pinpoint it, and to actually see if there are other needs that can be met within the general public.
Councilmember Kellogg?
Thank you. I'll ask a question. I'll direct towards you, Mr. Mayor, but Mr. Wesco will probably need to answer it.
Mr. Moorhead is on that side.
Yeah. He'll answer me by kicking me. You said elderly. That we're going to survey our elderly. I'm going to suggest that there's more than a need than just elderly. There may be folks out there that have a disability that would. Is your intention that?
Well, and when I actually made the presentation, it was actually in persons of need So to incorporate that. Originally, it was just to address that need, but to expand it to see, you know, if we're going to provide public transportation, let's take a look at what the need is within the community. Because then it allows us to decide whether or not it's a once-a-month system or if it needs to be more robust. Again, to this point, it hasn't been data-driven. So let's actually, you know, one of the things that Raymore does, and the reason we're in the position financially we are, is that all the decisions we do make, we back up with the information so that we can make the most sound decision at that time.
Councilmember Abdelgawad?
I'll start by saying that I will support that, but only because it's a step in the right direction. My honest opinion of it is it's just an opportunity to further delay this. We've delayed it for over a year now, and I think that because there are 3 full buses and there is constantly a waiting list, I don't understand why we feel like we need more data and more information. We've also discussed that if there was more advertisement for this, that the waiting list would be longer and the bus would continue to be at its maximum capacity, which it is on pretty much a weekly basis. And I might offer to the suggestion that the reason that you're not getting any phone calls on this, because I am, are that the people who are calling, requesting the service, are not calling you because they don't want to talk to someone who's confrontational. They don't want to talk to someone who is saying things that over and over in meetings have not been what people have told us as a council. They don't want to listen to you tell them false things about the program, and they don't want to deal with your confrontational attitude. And that's personal information that I've gotten from people that I've talked to.
Councilmember Kellogg?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I seconded the amendment, and the reason why I did is also because I feel it's a step in the right direction. I think this is worthy, and even though it was shot down the first reading and it's not being reconsidered tonight, this is a step in the right direction. I think it's a small step in that, but what I'm going to add is, you know, even though I'm supporting this, we're funding $3,000 for administrative costs to do something that the cost of the bus is $2,800. You know, the cost of us actually providing a service in need, in my opinion, is $200 less than performing more bureaucracy here. So, you know, that's kind of my frustration, and I'm trying to be as respectful as I can, and I hope I am. But I think this is a step in the right direction. I just wish it was, my own outcome, but, you know, I'll go along with this.
Just one correction there. We're not funding. We're budgeting right now, so.
And thank you for that.
Mr. Holman?
Thank you, sir. I'm in support of actually both projects to a degree, and I think it's a very good idea to find out a little bit more about the need of our citizens and what things they would like to see for our city. But I had a question for Mr. Feuerborn. The Oates bus issue, as I understand, is not dead, if you will, regardless of the outcome of this amendment. We were under the intent to apply for a grant that the deadline is coming up in a couple of weeks. Is that correct?
That's correct, sir.
And that would, if we received such a grant, we would at least be have a certain percentage of that $2,800 paid for by the granting entity, I'm assuming is Mark.
That's correct, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Westcott, did you have your hand up?
Well, I'd first like to start off by saying the information that I've shared has come directly from staff, which came directly from the Oates director themselves. So any information that I have put out, again, has come through the appropriate and the proper channels. I will remind council that, you know, we have certain processes that anytime we're going to do a program that we have to follow. So to put a budget line that says Oates bus without it going out for bid is actually improper. We would not just assume to give somebody a contract to do our sidewalks or to do our roads or any of the other services that we provide without taking it out for bid. To do so in this arena must follow the same process. If we're going to offer public transportation, we need to put it out for bid to let all the players who are involved in that market actually put a bid in. And then that way to provide the best service for the taxpayer dollars. Again, that's our process.
Councilmember Kellogg and then Hubach.
I'm going to decline.
Okay,
Thank you, though.
Councilmember Hubach.
We're being asked to approve a budget that the staff feels is necessary for each department. And the maximum amounts that they think that they need are given to us, and it's an $8.8+ million budget. All through the year, we will find times to tweak that budget and add a little and take away a little bit. And then we can argue these little specifics at that time. Right now, we're being asked to do maximum amounts. And under the general fund, I don't see transportation listed anywhere, but I do see under the capital budget $2 million. And so in the $2 million, we can find lots of places where we will want to add and subtract to it. I suggest that we pass the budget as is, the maximum which the staff needs, and then the council can do the tweaking all through the year that we find is necessary. We've done it before every year, and we'll do it again this year. Let's just pass the budget and go on.
Yeah, well, and I think her point's valid. She was speaking in opposition to the amendment. Other discussion? Okay, I'll ask you to read your amendment again so that everybody knows what they're voting on.
Fair enough, sir. I move to amend the fiscal year 2015 budget to increase the administration department professional services budget line by $3,000 to allow for an extended citizen survey to determine the need and/or public's desire for the city to provide funding for public transportation to senior citizens and other persons of need in the community.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to amend the budget. All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. In opposition? 1, 2. Just double checking. 5's good, right? Okay, the budget is amended with the proposed amendment. We're back to the main motion of the adoption of second reading of Bill 3012. Is there any further discussion? Councilmember Abdel-Gawad?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the budget to include a line item for transportation for elderly and disabled necessity shopping once per month in the cost of $2,800.
Second.
I'm going to that is so close to what the other one was. I'm going to ask our parliamentarian.
Can I hear the motion again, Ms. Abdel-Gawad?
I move that we amend the budget to add a line for necessity shopping transportation for elderly and disabled in the cost of $2,800.
That's not the same motion as
Okay.
specifically the Oates bus, sir.
Then we have a motion to amend. Is there a second?
I gave you a second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Councilmember?
I hate to seem like I'm beating a dead horse, but I really feel like this is important. If one of the issues that other council members have with this is that it specifies it's for the Oates bus, and I've heard that there are other services. If we go ahead and get this in the budget, maybe then we can explore other services and get this service to our citizens sometime this year.
Other discussion? Councilmember Hubach?
You know, transportation doesn't stand alone when you're talking about on the elderly. There's housing, there's nutrition, there's all kinds of things. And I think before we start picking the certain items that we want to fund, we ought to see about setting up a committee on aging that would be a citizens advisory committee, and let the people then that would be the most affected by it, let them look into it and come back and tell us what it is that they need. And I think that would be the proper way to do it, to have a citizens advisory committee that would cover all aspects of aging, not just the transportation one, but there's housing, there's nutrition, there's recreation, there's even voting, all of these things. And we're being told that in 15 years from now, which is not very far away by government standards, we're going to be a community that has 1 in 5 will be 65 and 1 in 7 people will be 85. And so what we need to do then is to start planning then for when the elderly, because they say that the suburbs are going to be the most affected, that right now 50% of all of the elderly folk live in suburbs, and they're expecting that to be up to 80% in the 15 years. Let's do it properly then, and instead of just nitpicking one little piece here and one little piece there, let's do it as a concerted effort and have a commission set up by the council with the mayor making the appointments, and then let us see what it is that we actually need to help the aging and get that done, and stop just pick one certain thing, because that may not be the most important thing right now. I know transportation is a problem, but it could be that nutrition and Meals on Wheels is an even greater problem than the Oats buses. We need to know what it is so that we can spend our money wisely and in the best use for the elderly. I'm
Councilmember-
opposed to doing anything but passing the budget as
Councilmember Abdelgawad?
Ms. Huback, I agree with you 100%. I think that our seniors and our disabled citizens need a lot more support than what we provide for them here. But I think that nobody can argue. We have people in our city who are using this service who have repeatedly asked us to provide another week of shopping for them, so that as more people ride this bus, they don't get to ride it as often, so they can shop more than one time a month. If we have a bus for them to use every week, then they have the opportunity to hopefully shop at least twice a month. And I don't think that's asking too much. I think this is a mere $2,800 in our great big huge budget. I don't think, again, that it's asking for too much money to set aside a little bit to help these people get their shopping trips. We don't have public transportation here. If people who ride the bus want to get a cab to go to the store, it costs them $20 for a round trip, cab trip from our neighborhood to Price Chopper. That's a lot of money to spend to go. They have to go get their hair cut, they go to doctor's appointments, and then another $20 for a cab to go shopping. If we can provide this service for them and help them be able to make ends meet, to make life a little easier, to just give them the necessities that they need, I don't think $2,800 is asking too much. I absolutely agree we need to explore more options, that they have more needs. I totally support some kind of committee, but right now, today, we can do this. We can put this money in the budget so that they can have an extra week of shopping. And quite honestly, Meals on Wheels is something that we've talked about numerous times, and just like this, the council won't spend any money on services for elderly. So we're looking at the huge cost of Meals on Wheels next to $2,800, which is nothing in our budget. Let's just do this.
Councilmember Wesco?
You know, I think the statement to say that the council won't spend money on the elderly is incredibly unfair. I think this council, each time that these things have been presented, has said, show me the data. Show me and prove to me that this exists. Show me the numbers, and let's go about this in a way that makes the most sense, that we can do it as effectively as possible. And each time that the council has asked for that information, none has been provided. The last time that the Oats bus funding was brought before us, which was a year ago, we said, hey, where's the need? Show us what the need is. Show us the data. And again, for an entire year, it was not provided. Then budget time comes again, and the same request comes again. And then we make the same request, show us the data. And again, no data is provided. I am all for supporting and taking care of need in our community. Absolutely. Show me the need. You just can't scream that there's a need and not produce the proof and expect everybody to say, okay, there's a need because you yelled the loudest. Show us the information, show us the data. You know, I can go out to our website, the Raymore website, and we can actually look the exact breakdown of our demographics in our city. By 2017, 11.3% of our population will be between 55 and 64. 8.1% will be between 65 and 74. 4.7% will be between 75 and 84, and 2.5% will be 85 plus. I mean, we have that data, so we know what our makeup is. How many of those individuals need those services? Do they need the services that Councilmember Hubach had mentioned? That's what the survey is going to do for us. It will help us determine what the need is and what program might make sense or doesn't make sense. To just blindly go into a program without knowing if we're actually meeting the need or we are totally ignoring a need that is present, I think is inappropriate, which is why we need to go ahead and do that survey and move forward.
Councilmember Hubach?
That's the reason I think we ought to set up a commission and let the citizens that use it tell us. Because if I understand it correctly, what the problem is right now is they have a waiting list for people that want to use it. Well, just adding another week is not going to help on the waiting list at all. Maybe the answer is not to have a bus come every week, but the answer may be to have 2 buses available every other week or something. We really don't know how it is they want to use the services. That's why I say let us set up a regular commission, just like we're going to do on the Arts Council, and let the people that are involved in it, that will be using it, let them tell us what they need. Do they want it every week? Do they want more people to be able to do it every other week? Do they want to add certain things like doctor visits? Do they want to add other things? We need to know exactly what it is that the elderly are wanting. And right now, I cannot say that I know what they want. I don't know whether the rest of you do either. We just know what we think we want. We hear from a few people, but we haven't heard from the majority that might be using it. And I just think that we're rushing in without making getting all of the facts and having it available to us so we can make an informed decision. Will be using taxpayers' funds for this. These elderly are also taxpayers. But we have an obligation to the entire community to use the money wisely. And I don't think we're going about it in the right way.
Councilmember Moorhead?
Councilmember Hubach, I warn you, taking that position is very dangerous. I took that position earlier this week online and was now being accused of being a liar based on an online game of telephone. The long and short here is this, and my position has been consistent since August 16th. We don't know what the need is. $2,800 may not be enough. We hear a lot from selected residents. We hear occasional information thrown around. There's been no disparaging remarks made about the Oats Company. There's been no disparaging remarks made about any private entity. Now, for a council member to say that I don't care what a private entity does with their week, because we can do with our week as we wish. We can expand the service as much as we want. The suggestion of doing multiple days, that's our business. We're here to take charge of the public trust, not to deal with private entities. That's not a disparaging remark. On Saturday, August 16th, I had made the proposal during our work session to fund transportation for people with need. The people who were supportive of this were the people who were opposed to that. So my concern is, and it's not negative about the Oats, I had a wonderful discussion with and read their newspaper. And there is no Raymore phone number in here for Raymore citizens to call. They don't know who to call. I asked citizens in Ward 2 to pick up that newspaper and tell me where you would find a number to schedule. It's not in there. So information needs to be disseminated for people to know. We also need to know how many. We may need a lot. We may need more. Meals on Wheels is an issue that I've spoken with before. These are all important issues. My position is we can go laterally as well as horizontally. I've reached out in the last 2 weeks to speak with other transportation companies because I know one member of this council is very against no bid contracts, and I suspect would have no problem having this go out for bid for a competitive bid. That's not speaking ill of the Oats Bus. The Oats Bus provides a wonderful service, but what if we can get a better, different service? Those are the things that need to be explored. I would encourage the council to keep things more broadly in mind that way, instead of boiling down to the melodrama that we've had. Everything that's been said for the supporters of this Oats Bus could be equally applied in other ways as well, in other services, for the elderly or people of need, for other companies, and again, for the city abroad. And I support that, and I do applaud those two people. But I also believe to ask for more information or ask for better clarification or expand to possibly cover other people is also responsible as well.
Other comments? Councilmember Hubach?
When you look at Cass County, you will find that half the population is between Raymore and Belton. And what was it, over 40,000 people or so? Have we looked into the possibility that there might be some sort of public transportation that would apply to Belton and Raymore that would take care of the needs of these two communities and not the southern part of the county doesn't seem to have the same concerns that we do. Maybe there is something that Belton and Raymore can work out together having to do with public transportation that would be more advantageous to all of us. But we haven't looked into that yet. We're just focusing on one little part of the program, and I'm just saying let's look at the overall thing before we get bogged down in just one part of it. I believe that we should make sure that the elderly have plenty of transportation. I'm just not sure we're going about it at the right way and in the right way. So there's where I'm having problems with it. So, but the budget is not geared toward just transportation. It's geared toward the entire workings of the city, and that's what I thought we were voting on to approve. And
Well, right now, we're voting, or you're voting on a amendment to the budget. Councilmember Abdel Gawad.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thanks for kind of that redirection. I think that the other thing that this amendment would do is, as Mr. Holman mentioned, we are applying for a grant through MARC, and one of the things that we know about that grant is that it would require that the city match some of the funds. They're not just going to give us money if we're not willing to put something into the program as well. So having a line item in the budget that's open, not specifying to the Oates Bus just to provide this transportation that is needed in our community, would also have some money set aside in case we get this grant and we need to match part of it.
Councilmember Westcott.
Following up, our percentage of that match would be $400, give or take. Is that correct?
It's an 80-20 match, yes, sir.
Yeah. You know, the biggest challenge, and it's the challenge that all government and even public projects face, is that if it's going to be successful, it has to have a champion get behind it. It has to have somebody that believes in the project so much that they get behind it and they drive it. No pun intended on a transportation issue. But that's what it takes for anything to succeed. You know, when they remodeled our World War I museum, I mean, they got people that got behind it and championed that. This issue, it hasn't been championed. It's been addressed. It's been brought up on a couple of different times, but it hasn't been championed. So when projects aren't championed, then everybody else who isn't necessarily against the project, but isn't 100% behind it and waving that flag, they doubt people's sincerity. You know, when you say we have a need, we have a need, we have a need, but we're not even going to talk about it again for a year. I mean, to me, that creates an issue. That's why, again, I think the survey is very important. I think that the MARC funding that we can get, we can do a pilot program with, and we can get information from it. I think we're moving in the right direction, and that's why I don't support just creating a line item with $2,800 in it that, do we need that much? Do we not need that much? You know, without having specific information ahead, I don't see where that's the prudent choice.
Councilmember Kellogg.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I think what Councilwoman Abdel Gawad and myself are doing tonight are somewhat trying to champion a topic in whatever way we can. Her and I have supported this together through the whole thing, and quite honestly and frankly, if her and I didn't have the courage to do that, I don't feel that this would be being talked about for the last 25 minutes. I
25 or is it 30?
It might be 30 by the time I get done. You know, so I'm going to say thank you, Sonia. You know, it's not easy sitting up here asking for this and going through, belaboring this, because, you know, I can feel that that's what we're doing. But I think I can speak for Ms. Abdelgawad just as well as I can myself, is that we feel passionately about that there is a need for this, and that both of us are willing to, you know, take the barbs that come with that, because it is it's a serious need. And we, you know, like I say, I'm sorry, Sonia, if I'm speaking for you, and be sure to correct me if I speak wrong. We believe in this, and we're willing to go through the painful, you know, repercussions for this, because we believe in it. And if that's not championing something, then I don't know what is. You know, we're seeing to it that it is discussed and that it isn't being swept underneath the new carpet in the council chambers.
Other discussion? Councilmember Abdelgawad, would you read your amendment again, please, so that everybody knows what they're voting on?
Amending the budget to include a line item for elderly and disabled necessities shopping at the cost of $2,800.
Transportation for the shopping?
Yes.
We're not,
Yes, we're not shopping for
Oh,
elderly
okay.
and disabled. Transportation. Thank you.
and you seconded it, right? Okay, the amendment as stated, all in favor? 2, in opposition? 1, 2, 3, 4.
I'm abstaining from the vote because I'm not opposed. I just don't think it's proper at this time.
Okay, well, the motion failed for a lack of a number of votes. So we're back to the main motion, which, if I remember right, we did have a motion on and a second. Are there any other amendments? Oh, no, you don't. Councilmember Abdelgawad.
Not an amendment, just discussion.
Oh, okay.
Is that okay?
Yes, please.
I just want to point out that in this budget, as we are about to approve it, we are planning to spend $3,000 to decide if we should spend $2,800. And I just want it to be noted that that does not make any sense to me. However, the rest of the budget does.
Well, and again, as I reminded another council member, we're budgeting, we're not spending. So, other discussion, Councilmember Moorhead?
I guess for clarification's sake, and this is the way I'm interpreting it, council members are hesitant to support an automatic line item for a specific service when we see the possibility for additional services. So, I mean, I hear something completely different. I hear spending $3,000 for the possibility of spending substantially more than $2,800, because we don't know exactly what the need is, and we need to find out what that need is and then find out the efficient and reasonable cost for that is. If it ends up being 4 times that, if the need's there, then we spend it. But we don't just pick the first thing that is presented to us and accept it blindly. We look at all options, we look at every avenue. That's, I think, what most of the tenor of the majority of the council vote has been. So that's what I'm hearing. No, I don't like the fact that we, you know, I know citizen surveys can be difficult to interpret, and we can't always do a survey on everything. But at this point, when I'm having residents who actually ride the Oates bus calling and telling me and talking to me about information, I'm learning new information as more people are communicating with me. And that's a good thing. It's a good thing for all of us up here. So to gain more information is never a bad thing.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the second reading of Bill 3020. Is there any further discussion? All in favor? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The motion carries unanimously. We'll move on to the second reading of Bill 3013, please.
Second reading of Bill 3013 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, amending fiscal year 2014 budget.
I'll entertain a motion to dispose of the second reading of Bill 3013.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3013, the budget amendment for the Civic Center study.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve the second reading of Bill 3013. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. We have the second reading of Bill 2993 by title only.
Second reading of Bill 2993 by title only. An ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, amending the fiscal year 2014 capital budget.
I'll entertain a motion to dispose of the second reading of Bill 2993.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 2993, the budget amendment for the Building and Equipment Replacement Fund.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve the second reading of Bill 2993. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. And may we have the second reading of Bill 3011 by title only.
Second reading of Bill 3011 by title only. An ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, approving a settlement agreement with CenturyLink and assigning a percentage of the settlement proceeds to the Missouri Municipal League.
I'll entertain a motion to dispose of the second reading of Bill 3011.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3011, the CenturyLink settlement.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve the second reading of Bill 3011. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. And that takes care of old business. We'll move on to new business. We have the reading of Resolution 1462 by title only.
Resolution 1462, a resolution of the City of Raymore, Missouri, approving the First Amendment to the Economic Development Incentive Policy.
Staff report, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'll call on the city's Special Economic Development Council, Mr. David Bushek.
Good evening. My name is David Bushek with the law firm of My name is David Bushek with the law firm of Gilmore and Bell. We are bond counsel and special economic development counsel to the city. Quick summary of the this agenda item. In 2013, the city approved its economic development incentive policy. That policy includes policy statements regarding the conditions under which the city will consider and approve TIF projects. At a council meeting work session, we discussed the issue of amending that policy to incorporate policy statements regarding consideration of speculative TIF projects. The council is familiar with the Galleria TIF project. There have been many agenda items that we've discussed and approvals in connection with that project. One of the items that will be considered by the council at an upcoming meeting is Project 4, and as we've discussed, that is at this point a speculative TIF project. And what that means is in essence that the developer does not have any present tenants or proposed buyers of the property, but they are nevertheless requesting the city to approve a TIF project for reimbursement of costs despite the fact that they don't have any tenants lined up at the present time. And the city may consider that same situation in connection with at least one other TIF project, and it may come up in the future. So the council expressed by unanimous consent to consider an amendment to the city's policy, which would provide guidance under which the parameters that the city might consider and approve a TIF plan or TIF project that is speculative in nature. And so what's been prepared and what's presented to you is a statement of those conditions and items to consider. And as we pointed out at the previous meeting, this does not lock the council into any particular decision. This is merely a policy statement. It's in essence a list of the issues that the city would consider and give particular consideration to when it's considering requests by a developer to approve a speculative TIF plan or project. It provides the same degree of discretion that the council always has when it considers any TIF project, and this provides very meaningful guidance to the city staff and officials when staff is discussing that type of project with the developer.
Thank you. Questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll entertain a motion to dispose of Resolution 1462.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Resolution 14-62, the First Amendment to the City Economic Development Incentive Policy.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve Resolution 1462. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. We'll move on to the first reading of Bill 3016 by title only.
First reading of Bill 3016 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore approving an agreement between Mark Solid Waste Management District and the City of Raymore, Missouri relating to the Regional Household Hazardous Waste Program.
Staff report, please.
Thank you, sir. The fiscal year 2015 budget just passed by the council includes an item for participation in the Mid-America Regional Council Household Hazardous Waste Program that the council has participated in for a number of years now. Accordingly, we have received the actual agreement with Mark with a payment date of mid-December for that deadline. So staff presents that funding agreement to the council for its consideration in the amount of $19,974. This allows the citizens of Raymore to participate in one locally held, last year was held in Belton, locally held household hazardous waste drive-up program, as well as opening up both the Lee Summit Station and the Kansas City Station for drop-offs. Lee Summit by appointment, Kansas City anytime that they're open for household hazardous waste in any amount at those two locations. That concludes staff report, sir.
Thank you. Questions of staff? Councilmember Holman?
Just a quick refresher, that's, you can take like old computer monitors and defective televisions, is that the same?
Actually, that's the electronics event that Cass County holds. This one is for paint. Right.
There's a reason I ask the check for understanding questions every once in a while.
Other questions of staff? I'll entertain a motion to dispose of the first reading of Bill 3016.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3016, the Household Hazardous Waste Agreement.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the first reading of Bill 3016. Is there any discussion? Councilmember Kellogg?
I'm just kind of curious. I've known this has always been basically $1 per person based on per capita. Has there been an increase in this? I'm showing $1.04 here. Has there been a slight increase, or what?
No.
Is this what it's been for forever?
Not forever. I glance at Mike, and he's deliberately looking away from me, I know.
He's glaring at me.
I can say for certain that this is the third year in a row that that price has held true.
Okay.
And I would add, just for council information, that every single year, the local event, we end up turning away cars. It is that popular.
Can I follow that up?
Okay.
Maybe that's a topic for future work session?
Could very well be, sir. One of the things that we'd really like to see is what we like to see is an expansion of the local event. Normally when they get down here, we get what are called the ABOP events. It's limited items compared to the general event, and they do a rotation on that. Staff would probably be willing to recommend to council, if Mark would ever go along with it, an increase in that per capita cost if they would do more general events. But definitely a good work session topic, sir.
That would be my request as a council member to staff to follow up on, and
We got a year to
Yes.
get it on there.
Thank you.
Very good.
Other discussion? Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve Bill 3016. All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. And the first reading of Bill 3014 by title only, please.
First reading of Bill 3014 by title only, an ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with Welsh Silt Fencing and Erosion Control Company for on-call erosion control as an as-needed basis for code enforcement purposes.
Staff report, please.
Thank you, sir. I would ask Mike Krass to make the staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Fearborn, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. As part of the city's land disturbance requirements, developers are required to keep their erosion control measures in proper working order. From time to time, we find that they are not responding in a timely manner, and we have a need to take action on their behalf to correct issues. As part of the process, they put up a financial security, And so the funding for this service is taken out of that escrow. There's no city funds involved. Silt Fence has been doing it for us for quite some time, and we do recommend award of this contract to them.
Questions of staff? Thank you. I'll entertain a motion to dispose of the first reading of Bill 3014.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3014, the Erosion Control On-Call Services Agreement.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve Bill 3014. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. And we'll move on to the last item. We have first reading of Bill 301, well, I'm on a 3-015. You gotta get one of those in there this time.
First reading of Bill 3015 by title only. An ordinance of the City of Raymore, Missouri, amending the fiscal year 2014 capital budget.
The staff report, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'll call on Mr. Krasigan.
Thank you, Mr. Fairborn, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. The council had entered into a contract with Bright Construction to do some point repairs for the Onget force main. I had mentioned a little while ago that when they were completing the repair in the vicinity of Lakeshore Drive, there was some additional pipe that was in need of immediate replacement. That work has been completed, and the purpose of this budget amendment is to cover those costs in the amount of $8,662.
Questions of staff? Thank you. I'll entertain a motion to dispose of the first reading of Bill 3015.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Bill 3015, the budget amendment for the Owen Good Force Main point repair.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the first reading of Bill 3015. Is there any discussion? Councilmember Moorhead?
Mr. Mayor, I would remind you and the council that when this came before the council earlier on the selection of the contractor, I had to recuse myself for a conflict of interest. So since this technically does connect to that, I'll be also exempting out as a conflict.
Okay. Any other discussion? We have a motion and a second to approve the first reading of Bill 3015. All in favor? 2, 3, 4. Motion carries unanimously. I take, oh no. It was unanimously. He's completely out of it. Move on to public comments. Anybody want to speak? Come to the podium. Identify yourself for the record. Keep your comments to a maximum of 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Council. On behalf of Pancreatic Cancer Action Network, last year we were awarded the proclamation because my husband is a survivor right now, still doing well. And what I would like to challenge, I gave you all some documentation and some information, purple ribbons, purple bracelets. I'm going to ask you all, November 14th is going to be Pancreatic Cancer Purple for a Purpose. Wear purple. Let's support the citizens here in Raymore that are actually now fighting pancreatic cancer. Thank you.
Thank you. See nobody else coming forward. We'll close the public comment and move to Mayor Council communication. And this evening, Mr. Kellogg, you get to go first. Or Councilmember Kellogg, you get to go first.
I'll say no comment. Thank you.
Okay, wow. Councilmember Hubach, you're next.
I just wanted to say that I think everyone here on the council is very much in favor of doing something for the elderly. We're just not on agreement yet, same page as to what we think needs to be done. My main concern is that it be a permanent solution, in that we don't just say, well, all right, we'll give them $2,800 this year and that's it, and then we forget all about it. I do think that we ought to set up a citizens advisory board to help on these issues, because each one of us had a birthday and got a little bit older, and I'm probably closer to 65 than the rest of you are. So I can tell you that there is a need for some of these things, for housing, for transportation, for changes in recreation, and things like that. And so the only way in which to handle it is to have an ongoing board that looks into these things, does the research that we don't have the time to do, and comes back and lets us know then what it is that they think there's a need for, and then we can go ahead and take it from there. And so I would ask that we form a committee like that, or have the mayor make the appointments, and get something like that online and get started, because The longer we wait, the harder it's going to be.
Councilmember Moorhead?
You know, it was a wonderful bookend tonight that we started the meeting recognizing people who are enduring pancreatic cancer, and it was wonderful to hear some closing remarks. I have my little purple pin on. You know, as someone who has had family members who have fought that battle, some successfully, some not, with various stages of cancer, it's always good to just have that little reminder to keep us focused on what's important. So I want to thank everybody who did come tonight for that. I also want to thank all our appointees. I had the true joy to serve with Leo Anderson on the Planning and Zoning Commission, and enjoyed working with him. And Don Miskey was actually my first appointee, and I've been very proud at all his contributions that have also been on our Planning and Zoning Commission. We had last week we had a joint session with them, and I just have to rave about all the members, including, you know, although he would be happy to throw in an urban chicken joke at me, I do have to also note Jonathan Zur with our city attorney's office, who works with them extensively, and Mr. Catarat. So that whole board does a great deal for the city here. I don't think they get enough shout out because land use is not necessarily the most exciting topics, but our appointees, and I know there was another appointee as well. I don't know her specifically, but the two that I do, I want to commend for their continued commitment.
Councilmember Holman?
Thank you, sir. Two things. Wanted to recognize the students in the audience, especially those that stayed to the very end. I think the mayor mentioned, was it last week, that we must be getting closer to the end of the semester. We have students at every meeting.
Yeah, I understand the assignment's due tomorrow, is it? No? Okay. Not for you. For the ones that left, they're at home writing it now. So
It's good to see you here. And the second thing, I wanted to say congratulations to Chief Zimmerman. I, as a member of the MPOA, opened my magazine, which was delivered today in the mail, and there's a feature article written by the chief in Missouri Peace Officers Association.
Oh, I thought everybody knew that.
Derek reminded me of my error. I'm sorry. Been a member for a while, and there's a very fantastic article by the chief on females in law enforcement. And I will try and bring my copy in, or make a copy for everybody to read. It's a really good article. She did a great job. Full picture of her in there. I was like, hey, I think I know this person. So congratulations, Chief.
Thank you. Councilmember Westcoat?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, to start off with, I would thank the group that spoke regarding pancreatic cancer. My great uncle passed away due to pancreatic cancer, so I will be wearing my bracelet. I also want to let Mr. Burton and Mr. Brown, who are the reason for our students in the audience, that we appreciate those students' attendance. I also want to let them know that Stacy Smith and my daughter Sarah Westcoat are still there. They're in the second row, so I wanted to make sure that I embarrassed them. You know, a former council member got up and spoke tonight and took a few shots at a couple of the council members sitting up here, and you know, that's very unfortunate. It's unfortunate that when you ask for data and you ask for supporting documentation, that's met with hate. And it's a very unfortunate situation. You know, Raymore is in the financial position that we're in because we make very prudent and very well-supported decisions. You know, and I would expect that anybody who comes before us with a proposal, that they would have and they would provide the same level of documentation to support their project as we expect from our city staff when they present a project to us. I don't think that is any more unreasonable to expect that same level of commitment from private citizens or we as council members who sit here. Thank you, sir.
Councilmember Stevens?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I got a couple things. On Wednesday, November 5th, there's a workshop coming up at High Blue Well Center put on by the Elder Disability Law Firm. What you will learn if you go there is how to avoid having your life savings wiped out by a nursing home spin down, how the new law restricts protection of assets and steps you should take now to protect your loved ones, the asset protection language that most people don't have in their power of attorney documents, veterans benefits, how Medicaid works, how to find the right senior care facility, and on. And on a lighter note, today is National American Beer Day.
Okay. Councilmember Belgawad, I don't know if you're going to be able to top that, but please, try.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I want to echo the thanks to the families who came tonight to bring awareness for pancreatic cancer. I know it takes a little courage to step up here and kind of spill your heart, and I think they did that tonight and appreciate that and hope that we can all support them this month. And I just want to finish quickly by saying that some council members may call it gathering data, but I just see this transportation thing as one more thing that we're pushing, kicking the can down the road. We're just pushing it off. It seems like we've had a lot of things that our citizens have told us over and over that they want, and maybe we don't have hard numbered data, but I think that we've done things without hard numbered data in the past. And I'm sorry to all the people that are going to call me this week and tell me how sad they are that they're not going to get their week of transportation, but it seems like another thing that we're just kicking down the road, like several other issues that have come before the council.
City Manager, did you have a comment?
No, until after yours, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Couple of things. First, the remaining students in the audience. We had a full house. I know the people watching at home can't see the seats here, but we had a full house today. That was kind of neat. Second thing, the discussion on the Oates bus or the transportation for the aged or the needy or something like that. I got to tell you, it's a lot easier being on that side of the discussion than it's on this side of the discussion, because I can't talk and argue the merits with everybody, and I really wanted to, especially when we consider that the transportation that's provided by that Oates bus that we've been discussing it consists of a couple of parts. One is so they can go out and do grocery shopping and that sort of thing, but there's a second part of it, and then they get to go to lunch. So it's a social time for them. And over the weekend, I was thinking, gosh, you know, should we be sponsoring social activity for people here in Raymore? And I got to thinking a little bit more, and I think we do. We do it in Parks and Rec, though. You know, we have ball fields for social activities out there, so maybe the best way to fund the Oates bus is through Park and Rec. So if you can't get it that way, talk to Park and Rec. So. Last thing I've got this evening is normally in December we cancel the one meeting that occurs during Christmas week. That would be on the 22nd of December. It's my understanding we don't have a lot of topics for in November, so we could cancel the meeting that occurs Thanksgiving week. Given that we've met on Saturdays and a couple of fifth Mondays, would the council entertain a canceling of the meeting on 11/24?
I think that's brilliant, sir.
I think it's necessary.
Okay. I'll take it as the council is in favor of canceling the meeting on the 24th then. We'll work twice as long 2 weeks before then. There is nothing else. We don't have a reason to go in executive session.
That's what I was going to comment on. So although it was posted up as a possibility, there is no need.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn then.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we adjourn our October 27th, 2014 City Council meeting.
Second.
Motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. We're in adjournment. Thank you, everybody.